And now, as a way to continue with this, I would like to invite Bhekinkosi Moyo, professor at the Wits University. Bhekinkosi Moyo is a director and adjunct professor at the Center for African Philanthropy and Social Investment. He's a writer, he's a researcher, he's a thought leader who has championed African discourse on philanthropy. He has contributed to the growth of many civil society formations and has taken part in most of the continental processes of development and governance. He has gained considerable experience in management, leadership, strategic roles over a significant period. He has served as the director of programs for Pan-Africa organizations, Trust Africa, where he developed its strategy to cultivate conducive investment and business environment. Bhekinkosi Moyo has also been part of the formation of Africa Union Foundation and became one of its founding council members, working closely with the African Union chairperson. Bhekinkosi Moyo, my dear brother, today we have had a conversation and we have heard from two other brothers talking about what is bringing about all these difficulties and increasing food insecurity and malnourishment in the continent. We are envisioning zero hunger in the continent. We are also envisioning ability to produce enough nutritive food to feed everyone in the continent. Our question to you would be, what could be the role of Africa philanthropy in addressing these gaps and attaining the goals we want to attain in food security and nutrition? Welcome, Becky. And colleagues, you can continue to put questions on the chat, but after Bhekinkosi Moyo have spoken, we'll bring you up and we'll have an interactive session so you can also share your experiences and ask questions. Welcome, Prof. We cannot hear you, Prof.
Okay, sorry, I fell into the trap of not unmuting myself. I was saying thank you very much, Stigmata, my sister. I think it's fair that on this Africa Day, I wish you and the APN community a happy Africa Day. I also was saying that you and I have worked together over a long period of time. I think it's fair to start there. It's always good to tell our stories and where we're coming from. And thank you to Msonda and Wulelani for the rich insights and inputs that they've given. And it makes my work so much easier. I really want to say, what does Africa Day mean to us? I mean, it's an important day for us to have this conversation. And I want really to look at the intersections as a context between philanthropy and the Africa Day. And the Africa Day, to me, can best be described using the framework of Pan-Africanism, which is really some of the ideas that were led by some of our elderly statesmen that include Kwame Nkrumah and others. And the idea was really to look at initiatives and systems that would lead to concepts of self-help, unity, self-sufficiency, solidarity, among others. And if you look at the key features of philanthropy, especially African philanthropy, you will find that you are talking exactly about what Pan-Africanism is. You cannot talk about African philanthropy without referring to the concept of Ubuntu. I am because you are, that means I'm in solidarity with you. And that also in many ways assumes that we are talking about issues of unity and issues of self-help and sufficiency. Otherwise, then it ceases to be solidarity and the Pan-African approach. So these concepts are very, very important. And I think they were expounded much so in the Monrovia Declaration. I think it's a 1975 document that you can all look at, where leaders met together and I agreed to put in place systems, processes, and institutions that will express that form of solidarity, unity, and self-sufficiency. And I think when the OAU was formed in 1963 and then its conversion to the African Union in the early 2000s, you are beginning to understand some of these values underpinning that approach in the continent. I started there because I wanted to be able to talk about what role can philanthropy play in food systems, systemic changes, but also taking people out of poverty and children out of malnutrition. If we go back to the concept of unity, self-sufficiency, and self-help that I spoke about in the beginning, it has resonance with food security. How have we always done things in Africa and in the past? And I use Africa because today is Africa Day. In our African systems, and I'm happy that one brother referred to the Rwandan practice of 1 cow per family. And that 1 cow per family is a local initiative among many in Rwanda, which was put in place because when the government of Rwanda got into power in 1994 and they were busy rebuilding the country, one of the things that they did was to go back into their history and try to find out what was Rwanda like before the genocide. What are the things that, in a way, would say brought people together? What are the things that built the society together? And they went back to their traditional ways of doing things. And so you will find that the concept like Ubutehe, Girinka, and many others. And one of them is this 1 cow per family. This 1 cow per family is not just unique to Rwanda. It's actually a concept and a practice even here in Southern Africa. A chief or a rich person in a community would actually look at the surroundings and identify poor families. And he or she would loan cows to that poor family, allow them to use it for productivity, for farming, for manure and all of those things. Then after a long period of time, the family will return some of the cows and keep others. And that was a way of making sure that no one is left behind. And so in the African system and context, a cow is a symbol of dignity. You give somebody a cow, you have given them dignity. And that's the beginning of developing oneself. That's the beginning of taking oneself out of certain forms of poverty and inequality. And if you look at the reports coming out of Rwanda, you will find that with this practice of 1 cow per family, a lot of children were taken out of malnutrition. How did they do so? With the cow, you are able to have milk, and milk is very good and a nutrient for many babies and kids. But you are also able to utilize the cow for farming in the absence of new technologies and capacity tractors, among others. But you are also able to use the cow manure to actually do food gardens, and that brings a lot of vegetables and plants that you are able to do. So that whole practice on 1 cow per family is one example of how traditional forms of help, traditional forms of philanthropy and solidarity can be utilized to address a certain challenge within the agriculture sector, and that's production of nutritious value food. The second is that we have always done collaborative and pooled resources together. And in our traditional systems, again, in an African traditional system, we have concepts like Harambes, Amalima, and others. And this is where community resources are pulled together in order to address one person's challenges or one household's challenges. And so people come in with all the resources that they have. They are not expecting any payment back, but they come to help and pool their resources to farm or to harvest. So these concepts are very much linked to the notion of what philanthropy used to do traditionally and what it can do today. So today, how does philanthropy express itself? Again, using those traditional concepts, we try to modernize them. And that's what the government of Rwanda has done. It has taken its local initiatives and modernized them. infused them into their economic recovery strategies. In today's world, these expressions are found in the concept of high net worth individuals. In all African countries, cities, regions, there is that one or two or three or four individuals whose wealth surpasses that of others in the community. And they are expected to give back or plow back, and how they plow back varies. But in terms of what they can do in the area of food systems, food security, I think that given that the population of high net worth individuals is projected to grow exponentially in Africa, we should begin to be talking to high net worth individuals and encouraging them to support food systems, invest in social entrepreneurship initiatives, fund research in agriculture, and research and development. And we already know what is possible if high net worth individuals put money there. The role that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have played in this continent in terms of their support to agriculture, innovation, research, among others, is something that we cannot ignore. But that can be replaced by one of our own high net worth individuals. So there's a role that these high net worth individuals can play, and given that they are growing in population, we must begin to challenge them to plow back in that area. We saw in 2020, between March and December, high net worth individuals, according to Brisbane Research and African Philanthropy Forum, they gave more than they had done in the past 10 years. So that means it's possible for them to actually support this area and take us out of this quagmire. But they can also contribute to policy changes and a conducive environment for philanthropy to actually thrive and contribute to this. The World Economic Forum is currently underway, and we know that this is a policy platform where high net worth individuals try to exert their influence, but they also try to exert their influence in our countries. Why can't we use them to actually have their influence in the area of food security and ask them to utilize their resources, their voice, and their influence in making sure that the policies are allowing for the implementation of the various AU and country policies that I think Bulelani and Musonda were referring to. But the other form in which philanthropy expresses itself in terms of the mobilized or the pooled resources, and here we have seen whenever there's a pandemic, and your own organization, Stigmata, did these frameworks, one of which is many to many. People pool their resources in a short space of time because there's a crisis or there's an event, and they actually take care of that problem. We should be running campaigns in philanthropy to support and make changes, especially systemic changes in where climate change is concerned and where food systems are concerned. We know that globally, only 0.2% of funding goes to climate change. That's almost an indictment on philanthropy right now, because we know that climate change is our next pandemic. Why are we not putting resources there? Why is philanthropy not taking that seriously and utilizing its resources, its influence, and its voice? And then thirdly, of course, I think that philanthropy, as we know, expresses itself in the form of foundations, institutions, which you yourselves called one to many. And here it's in the form of grants, it's in the form of collaborations, it's in the form of funding that goes to new innovations in smart agriculture, among others. So I thought I would highlight some of these areas and some of these expressions to indicate the extent to which I think philanthropy has a huge role to play, and that going forward, we should really be thinking seriously about climate change and this impact on food systems, and why I think that philanthropy ought to be prioritizing supporting climate change and related areas such as research, innovation, but also piloting some of these experiments so that we are in a better place should the climate change pandemic hit us sooner than later. So thank you. I'll stop there and probably take some questions as well.
Thank you so very much.